Hey guys, John from Trizity Traveling. Today is another, I guess we'll call it a gear review, even though I'm not really reviewing the gear. I guess gear show and tell is probably a better description. And today I thought I would go over my travel camera, my travel kit, if you will. This is part of it, I guess. I usually bring this camcorder that I'm recording on right now as well, but not always. When I am looking to travel overseas, I look to travel with kind of the light is probably not accurate, but with the least amount of extra gear. I don't really like to travel with a bunch of lenses. When we went to the Maldives, I had one lens that was used in the underwater housing, and some helpful people here ended up putting it through the wash. So that lens, of course, is destroyed, which is very unfortunate. It came out of the wash in pieces. It's very sad. If I was to take a single camera traveling, what I would take would be my Sony A7 Mark III right here. What I've got on my Sony A7 III is a 24 to 240 lens. This is my preference to bring zoom along. I think it goes back to my plane spotting roots. When you're plane spotting, zoom is a good thing, and so getting up close and personal with your subject via the lens is one of my priorities. And so while I'm traveling and I take only this, it really provides me what I think is some flexibility to, I guess, compose the shot that I want if I'm not shooting an aircraft. Pretty much every time I stop at the airport, I am going to do some plane spotting if I can. I think I mentioned travel light. This is not really travel light. Just this lens comes in at 1.7 pounds. So this setup is definitely not light. But if you have a good camera strap, a wide strap, I use the Peak Design slide strap, which is pretty wide and allows me to wear this camera comfortably. I wore it for a week in London every day, all day. Takes excellent video as well. It's a 4K camera, steady shot inside. This particular lens is also optically stabilized. Not quite sure how the two of those work together. It seems like there's a little bit of camera shake. I don't know if the two are fighting each other. I haven't really looked into that too terribly much because I typically am able to stabilize those clips after the fact using Adobe Premiere. What I thought I would go over next is kind of a top-down view of the camera, and I'll show you some of my favorite things via the menu system and a couple things I don't really like as well. So every camera has its pluses and minuses. Frankly, I believe the Sony A7 III has more pluses than minuses, at least for me. And the only minus for this particular lens is the weight. It is quite hefty. So we'll continue from above. As I showed you at the intro, this is my Sony A7 III with the 24 to 240 lens. It replaced my A6000 with an 18 to 200. So you can see I kind of just upgraded from the A6000 to the A7. Similar lens setup between the two. Most of my pictures from the Maldives trip and up to the London trip last year were done on this A6000. The A6000 is a really good camera. Really big fan of it. Both of them are 24 megapixel cameras. The A6000, obviously, if you don't know, has an APS-C sensor, so it's smaller. Practical thing that I didn't realize when I was upgrading, the RAW files, I shoot in RAW and then use Adobe Lightroom to develop after the fact. The file size of the RAW images that come out of the A6000, roughly 20 to 25 megabytes. The files that come out of the full frame E-mount A7 III, about 40 to 45 megabytes. This really kind of hit home. I was in Atlanta earlier this year, had several days of shooting with Matt, a lot of photos, and I was surprised when I downloaded those photos that it was many gigabytes. So if you have limited storage, be aware of that. Also, the A6000 does not shoot in 4K. The A7 III does. If you're not familiar with 4K file sizes, they can get very, very large, and something to be aware of as you are storing all those, if you choose to store them. Again, E-mount, full frame E-mount, 4K steady shot inside. This lens also happens to have optical steady shot. The A6000 has a single memory card slot. The A7 III has 2 slots. I've got them set up to duplicate. First time I've really been able to have redundancy in in the cards, and I think that's probably a good thing. I've had a couple instances where some footage has been lost, corrupted files and those things, so the dual's kind of a big deal for me. So you've got your adjustment wheels, either exposure or aperture changes with these two dials here. I guess the last thing to mention is the battery that this particular camera uses. NPFZ100 battery pack. I have two of these, and I find that for most of the shooting I do, that will get me through the majority of the day. So it's a pretty large battery. Slider in there, it's very satisfying. As I mentioned in the intro, there are some pluses and minuses to this particular camera. This is a more advanced camera than the A6000. One of the pieces of evidence to support that is the number of pages in each menu. So this camera, all the buttons provide an amazing amount of programmability in terms of the functions that you can put on the buttons. I believe each button can be customized, but all of that ability to customize comes at a cost. You'll see just in camera menu 1, there's 14 pages of settings. Unless you're an advanced photographer and you have built-in knowledge of what a lot of those settings are, you're going to be scouring the internet to determine whether you need it or not. I have done that, and I've got the camera set up kind of how I like it, and I'm very pleased with the images that I get. Again, I'm shooting uncompressed RAW, which accounts for the file size that I get. It comes with a very complex menu system. That's the negative of it, in my personal opinion. It's got Wi-Fi settings. Only 2 pages of that, 3 pages of playback, setup, 7 pages of that. Also comes with a custom menu. Now, I've not done a lot of customizing here, but here are the options I've got. The focus magnifier allows you the ability to zoom in to part of your viewfinder and use that to do a manual focus. This is especially useful when you are shooting kind of a macro thing, maybe shooting a flower. You can zoom in and get some really good detail on a flower by doing that. The other time that I really use that quite a bit is when I'm shooting something in the distance, maybe a long exposure at night. I will zoom in. Been working on shooting the Milky Way, and I use that to try to focus on a single star, and then I can do my other settings based on that. But so the focus magnifier is something I use extensively. The last thing I want to mention on this particular camera, because I don't know if this is a function of it being mirrorless, but it's got a silent shooting mode. Last summer, right after I got the camera, kind of a trial run, we went to what's called the Birds of Prey bird sanctuary here outside of Boise. One of the things that you're able to do there is they bring a bird of prey. They brought the red-tailed hawk into the room. You know, they asked, be quiet, don't startle the bird. And so I figured that was a good opportunity to do some silent shooting. As advertised, completely silent. It got, I think the images are pretty good. I will include some of those images here. I also mentioned that you can customize just about every button. The only button that I've actually customized is the auto exposure lock button. I've actually made that the video record button. Looking at the viewfinder, trying to reach over when my finger's here over to here. For some reason, I never seem to be very good at that. And as a result, when I do get it pushed, the camera shakes, the image shakes, and I'm not really happy with the quality I get. So I changed the programming. So the auto exposure lock button is my record button. And if I just beep, it'll begin recording. Not that it's going to be very useful because it's pointed at the desk. And as advertised, this is the full frame E-mount, 24 to 240 millimeter, f3.5 to 6.3 optically stabilized lens. There's a side view if you didn't see it enough from the overhead view. This lens retails at $999.99. 24 millimeter, 10 times zoom, circular aperture. As I mentioned, built-in optical steady shot, dust and moisture resistant design. It's got a 72 millimeter filter diameter. And as advertised, one lens for all occasions. So that's really what I was looking for when I picked up this lens. I want one lens to cover a wide range of shooting conditions. For me personally, I always feel like I'm missing out on something by not having some zoom. Anyway, that's just personal preference. If you are interested, you could purchase this lens on Amazon. You can go to any of my videos. I've tried to update my gear list. If you click the show more, there'll be a link to each of these on Amazon. Typically, Amazon has some better prices. In this particular case, it is $1 cheaper, maybe $2 cheaper. So that tells me Sony probably doesn't allow them to be purchased at a discount. This lens has been out long enough. You could probably get a used version on, I don't know, multiple websites. Here's a close-up view of the A7 Mark III. That's what it would look like without a lens on the front. And again, a back view. If you go to the website, you can click on all the buttons and get some more information. The camera only retails at $19.99 just for the camera body, so it is not a discount camera, point and shoot by any means. I purchased it with the body and the 28 to 70 millimeter. $200 for a 28 to 70 lens seemed like a good deal at the time, so I went ahead and did that. 24.2 megapixel, 35 millimeter full frame. There are the specifications. 10 frame a second burst shooting. I like to do that when I'm taking pictures of airplanes. The proverbial spray and pray method. If you're trying to get a beacon shot of an airplane, that might be the way to do it. I've had some good luck with that anyway. There are the bulk of the specs. If you're interested in those, please either pause or go to the Sony website. Blah, 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 cha-cha-cha. Whole lot of specifications. If you're interested in the Sony A7 III, I also have a link for that on my YouTube. Again, you can get to that from the gear list in the show more of just about any of my more recent videos. The A7 camera body also retails for a couple bucks cheaper, $19.98. If you have Prime, you get free delivery. And again, with the 28 to 70, the price goes up to $21.98. So, as I mentioned, I don't believe Sony provides a discount on that. To this point, 6 months in, I am overjoyed with the performance of this camera. I really like it. It's a pleasure to shoot with. I'm continually amazed with the quality of the images that I'm getting out of this camera compared to the A6000 that I thought was pretty dang good. So, very happy with it. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed my show and tell of my Sony A7 III with the 24 to 240 whopper, almost 2-pound lens. You can do curls with it and build your biceps. It's probably not enough for that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that review. I hope you got something out of it. Check out my blog at trizitytraveling.com. I'll be posting some additional information about my Sony A7 III and the lenses I use there. If you did like today's video, I hope you'll like, comment, and subscribe. Click the reminder bell and you'll be notified of new content. Thanks everyone for watching and happy travels.